No NIO stock talk in this one. There's just too much else that we need to cover and discuss. So we just had NIO Day for one thing, and that was over the weekend. For your date and timestamp, this is Monday, December 23rd, 2024. Happy Monday to you. It's early afternoon as I record this. And a couple of personal notes before we get into this, but they're related to the channel and content. I know some folks were hoping I would be able to do a live stream. I think Wealthy Mindset, the YouTube channel, Triple M, is planning on doing that on Christmas night. I don't think it's going to work for me, but I'll try to connect with him at some point. Maybe we can do a collaboration and a video together and share that at some point in the future. But because we've got Christmas and schedules are different and there's family stuff going on for everyone, I did want to do something. And so one idea that I have, and I'll include this as one of the videos, is, I'll try to get 12 videos out by the end of the year. By the time January 1st, 2025 rolls around, I'll try and get 12 videos out, sort of the 12 videos of Christmas, I guess, is the theme. But we'll see if I can get it done. Normally, I don't even do one a day. So, but I'm hoping I can, find some time here and there and do maybe a few in a block and then just release them over the course of, this next week to week and a half, and kind of set the tone on what I think is going to be a very exciting 2025 for NIO and for NIO stock investors. But now let's get into and start talking about some of this content, because first off, if you missed it, and I will share the links for these things in the description, along with, this will probably be a longer video, so I will create timestamps so you don't have to watch all the way through the video. You can jump around as per your choice of topic, or however time permits. But this is from the NIO website. They came out with a shortened and abbreviated sort of an update of the highlights. It's about 5.5 minutes long now. They do, I believe that they have unlisted the original live stream of the event. And so I'll put it in the description in case you want to watch it. But this also might be sufficient for those who are just, looking to get caught up and see some of what went on, sort of the highlights. So anyway, I wanted to offer that. And here is Dong My Mai's channel. He was an early NIO user, and I've talked about his channel quite a few times, and he actually ordered the ET9. So, and I haven't watched this video of his. I try to get to his content when I can, but in this case, he ended up buying one of the initial ET9s. And he talked about how he was worried that he might not be able to buy because they only had 999 that they were going to offer. And this is the limited edition of the 999, priced at 818,000 RMB. So that's over 100,000 US dollars per vehicle for these 999 units. This is how it's going. They sold them out. And so that's kind of cool. And then he also, this is a William Lee reference, mentioned that Firefly pre-orders that was also announced at NIO Day could boost production capacity by launch. And I believe the goal here, and I think NIO is doing a couple of these things very intentionally with timeframes in mind into 2025. And really, I think it's the second half of 2025 that they're really focused on. And up until then, they're just going to continue to build and get things out like the ET9s when they're able. But I think significant production coming from, Firefly, also the ramping of Onvo, which I think their goal is 20,000 delivery units in March. I think this all aligns in 2025, partially with the first couple months are usually a little slower cyclically on the sales side of things in China. And part of that is with Chinese New Year. But the flip side of that is more and more people travel during that time. And that means power swap stations and the value and the revenue from that over the course of time will only grow. So even when there are slower delivery times and production times, maybe with some of the brands, I still think that, NIO is really well positioned long term. But now let's talk, and I just want to kind of keep moving through because I've got these tabs set up. I want to get as much info out there as I can, and then share all the links, as I said before, so you can check things out further on your own as you choose. This is the Ladao or the Onvo website. And this is what I'm curious about, and this will be one of the videos that I'll do for this 12 days of Christmas theme. Is I'm wondering what the insurance registration data is going to look like. The best single week we've seen for NIO on its own was 6,800, and with NIO and now Onvo ramping in this month of December with the goal of 10,000 units. And William Lee, as of December 12th, was still bullish on NIO being able to achieve a 30,000 month delivery number and a 10,000 Onvo number, until or unless I hear someone from the company and I'm talking executive like William Lee tell us they're not going to get there, I'm just going to keep tracking the stat and we'll see what happens. But I'm wondering if we'll see a 6,800 number or better come out on Tuesday from the previous week. And then that would still leave a full week and then some. By the way, the end of the months for these insurance registration numbers, that's usually when we see the biggest numbers. So I just kind of have that in mind as we're watching this ramp of Onvo. We'll talk more about it in just a minute. But I also want to share this. This is Firefly and kind of the announcement of Firefly. This is the part I wanted to highlight. Oh, sorry. Let me go back. Got ahead of myself. With Onvo, and this is the Firefly price is what made me think of this. With Onvo, when they announced Onvo, they announced it with a price of about $30,000 US. And then later they announced the battery as a service, the option where you don't have to purchase the battery, you can rent the battery. And that dropped the price to as low as about $21,000 US. That is significant for this first sub brand. So now, as we see Firefly and we hear, this is going to be the most affordable vehicle, which I still think it's going to be pretty nice. They're maintaining the premium kind of view of the brand for NIO across all these sub brands, but with the pre-sale price of 148,000 RMB, basically about $20,000 US, it looks like is what Firefly is initially being offered at. However, we don't know the battery as a service price. So if it drops by, let's say $5,000 US or even more, we could see a $13,000 or $15,000 US price. And I'm telling you, this is a perfect alignment for NIO from a strategy as far as announcing and starting to really ramp the global side of the business, because with price points like that, tariffs matter a whole lot less. Now, I don't know what the production is going to look like. NIO hasn't actually talked about that specifically yet. I'm hoping we'll hear more about it. I think, they'd said before that they thought potentially they could, the market could support 50,000 units on the delivery side of things, but I don't know that that is necessarily going to be the goal. So anyway, this is the Firefly website. Again, I'll share all these links, so if you haven't seen them, you can check them out for yourselves. Let's keep it moving, because this is big picture. In this year of 2024, this is just the battery electric vehicle brands. This is across all price ranges. How crazy that NIO is in the number 5 spot, and they have barely started the sales and really the ramping of Onvo and Firefly. This is, in other words, just the NIO brand, and they are the best premium selling brand with the basically 30,000 USD price point and above, with pure battery electric vehicle sales in China. So they have and continue, I think, to establish themselves as significant market players in the premium segment. However, this is still what they're looking at. This is the total passenger vehicle sales, and their competitors with the NIO brand are right here. Audi with over 51,000, and the blue indicates ICE sales. So those are still sales that in the future will go somewhere else, either to an orange or a green. How many can NIO take? The other folks that they're competing with in that highest price premium segment are BMW, again heavy with the blue, with over 50,000 total sales year to date. And then Mercedes right here, 48,000. So look, my view again remains big picture. When we come back over here, and then when I think in terms of what William Lee has told us, the long-term goal for NIO is 40,000 monthly deliveries for that brand. He thinks that's doable, and it certainly looks like that's the case. There's plenty of market share that NIO can still take. I don't think they're going to be the only player, and so I'll be curious about seeing, brands and like Zeekr, for one, is a really interesting one to keep tracking. But also, I think NIO, with its positioning as being the early leader with the battery swappable vehicles, I just think that puts them years ahead of some of these other companies. But I also think when the companies come over, some of whom are partners of NIO, and we see them coming out with battery swap models, I think that further validates NIO as just a monster in the space. So I still think we've got a lot that can shake out and play out. What will also be fun, since I have the BEV side of things up, is this is the top 20 in sales for year to date in 2024. Guess who's probably going to be on there next year? NIO, Onvo, and Firefly. I'll bet all three of them make the top 20 by the end of 2025. So I think a lot of excitement ahead, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun tracking these things into 2025. There is one thing I was hoping we would hear, but I kind of, realistically, it was a big ask to hope for an update on this. But CATL has launched. They're wanting to do battery swap with an ecosystem, and they've got 100 partners for this. Now, for those who aren't aware, I wanted to also have this at the ready so you could see. This is something, and again, it kind of ties in with the big picture, the long-term view of William Li, who runs NIO and whose vision this company is. And he had said in the fall of 2020, he talked about how NIO had finally gotten, and it was at least 6 years in the making, upgradable, swappable battery technology. And after that, they set up and they introduced battery as a service. They also came out with the battery asset company. One of the partners in the battery asset company was CATL. They remain a partner. And at the latest numbers, I think back at that time when they first set it up, there were 4 partners. They each had 25% equity interests. Since then, they've had more interest and more partners come on board. They've done more financing that way and done some creative things with respect to that. But as of the most recent filing, NIO looks like it has about 19%, 0.4% roughly, of the battery asset company. Now, the reason I share this is for those who don't know or were thinking that this is just a move by CATL to compete with NIO, it is not. I think they already tried a direct competitive model of sorts with EvoGo, and I think this is their sort of amendment, or I call it learning agility. You adapt when you realize, okay, we need to do things a little different on the part of CATL. They know from being a part and a partner with NIO, with the battery asset company, how viable this is. So I think it's a huge validation for NIO and for the long-term prospects of battery swapping in China. I think this is just a step. And in fact, in this article, they talk about trying to make it more standard. And so that's exactly the direction here. I'm not sure if NIO is one of the many partners that's invested in this new infrastructure, the collaborative ecosystem planning of which they're talking about 30,000 battery swap stations. That's long-term. The goal is 1,000 in 2025. And for comparison, NIO has about 3,000 on their own. I think their goal was to get to 3,000 at the end of this year, 2024. And I believe they want to have 5,000 by the end of 2025. So NIO is still well ahead of everyone else with respect to this, and with models that can swap on the passenger vehicle side of things or the BEV side of things. Now, what I was hoping we would hear was an announcement with respect to Firefly and whether or not they might be in the future swapping and using this system, this battery swap infrastructure. And the reason I'm wondering that is if NIO doesn't have to come out of pocket for all of the infrastructure build out, that's wonderful. And then we don't have to worry about Firefly, the sub brand, if they start selling a ton of those vehicles, for those to be competing with Onvo and NIO in some of the NIO swap stations, if that makes sense. So, we didn't get any detail on that. And I'm hoping in the next earnings call, we might get some insight with respect to that. But final thought here, and again, this is a nod to the big picture vision of the guy running the company. This is William Li talking about 100,000 battery swap stations in China. Now, this may be a 2050 goal or timeline that he's thinking of. That's the number of total gas stations in China. And again, if we come back and I share this is a reference to this 30,000 goal and the CATL and all these partners talking about building out to that point. They're talking about shifting about 1/3 of the market to that. In other words, those 100,000 gas stations, equating to 1/3 of that being about 30,000 battery swap stations. Well, NIO already well in advance of everyone else. I don't know how many that means NIO will be targeting. I also don't know what the time frame for that is. But again, to kind of reiterate the big picture view and the way this guy looks way out into the future, I'm talking about William Li. This is also one of the reasons that I think it's a big mistake for folks who are short-sighted with this company. If the man whose vision the company is this long-term and has this big of a big picture view, then why would you not give him some time? And I'm not referencing 2050 as being the time frame. I'm thinking more in line with something like 2030 or 2035, even, depending again on where your price point is, your interest in the company, what you think they can do, and how long all this takes. Whether you're looking for the full-on global expansion, which maybe it takes years for NIO to be really widely adopted, even in Europe, even across some of the other markets globally. But with Firefly, and the big, I think, question with Firefly, I think it'll do very well if it can swap in the existing NIO stations in Europe. That's a really interesting advantage that NIO now has with, when they're able to release and start selling Firefly in that European market. I think it's maybe the perfect vehicle for that market, but I don't know. And I also want to hear from other people on this. This certainly is not just my view. I'm just trying to share some of the things that I think, and especially when I recognize just how long-term and big picture the vision of this guy running the company, William Li, is. I think that I'd rather give him more time rather than less. That's my view. However, I still have, some sort of tangible things like the three major growth phases. I identified them for NIO profitability. William Li had said 2026 full year profitability. I think that's certainly possible. They might even surprise in 2025. But if I want to be conservative, I'll just say, well, what if it takes, 2027 or even 2028? I am fine with that personally. And then the next one is my number 3 of the 3 initial major growth phases. That's when will there be 1 million NIO sales, just the premium brand? And what are those cumulative sales with the battery as a service? What does all that look like at that point? Do we have a better sense of NIO, as I see it, a true holding company that's building out lots of these businesses, having just enormous profits coming in from a number of the entities or partnerships at that point? Or is it still sort of, being built out, if that makes sense? Those are some of the things that I'm thinking. But I talked long enough, probably more than many even wanted me to. So let me get this thing finished and edited up and out as soon as possible. God bless y'all. Have a great day. I'll see y'all again very soon.